Thank you and welcome. I too would like to start by acknowledging the Gadigal of the Eora Nation and pay my respects to elders past and present. As a community, we know what it feels like to have our lives up for public debate, and we stand ready to play our part and pay it forward in listening to our First Nations peoples, particularly our First Nations LGBTIQAI+ people, including our sister girls and brother boys, in supporting their aspirations for respect and recognition, truth and justice. Thanks. I would like to acknowledge all of you, our special guests, and I can just see your smiling faces, and it's so wonderful to have you all here today after so many years and months of preparation. I'd also like to acknowledge that some of the dignitaries that are here today. You've heard from many of them already, but some of them that are in the room, including the EU Commissioner for Equality, Helena Dalli, and also senior representatives from foreign governments around the world, including our special envoys and ambassadors from a number of countries that advocate around the world stage for our communities. Thanks for being here. We also have representatives from national human rights institutions, including the President of our Australian Human Rights Institution and our Sex Discrimination Commissioner, Rosalind Croucher, and then Kate Jenkins, and of course elected officials, lawmakers from states and territories and the Commonwealth across Australia, but also our region, and we really do welcome them here to be part of this really important conversation. I want to formally thank and acknowledge the commitments which have been made by both the Australian and New South Wales governments today. The Australian government's commitment to supporting our communities and the human rights of our communities across the region is the first time Australia has committed to a long-term strategy and dedicated funding to help address the legal discrimination and social stigma facing our communities around Asia, Pacific and the world. This deserves applause. Now, we're not quite sure if it makes up for the fact that Foreign Minister Penny Wong couldn't be here today and let down her legion of fans, who I'm sure are in the audience, but I reckon it comes pretty close. And we also welcome the landmark investment into the health of our communities, which you'll be hearing about more today from Assistant Minister Jed Carney. These changes are truly game-changing and life-saving. This is exactly the reason we're here today. I'd also like to acknowledge the commitment of Minister Franklin in New South Wales to ensure that he raises the issue of counting our communities in our national census, because until we are counted, we are invisible. And this was in addition to some previous commitments that the New South Wales Government has made, which are very welcome. Well, here we are with all of you, and it is an immense honour and privilege to share this room with my fellow human rights defenders, civil society organisations, elected representatives, experts, business representatives and everyone committed to advancing equality and human rights to all people, regardless of their sexual orientation, gender identity and expression or sex characteristics. I would like to thank our community partners who worked with us and Sydney World Pride to help bring this conference together. Our Brains Trust, ACON, the Australian Federation of AIDS Organisations, APCOM, Black Aboriginal Corporation, Intersex Human Rights Australia, LGBTI Health Australia, our strategic consultant on youth and disability, Paige Burton, and our amazing members of our international advisory group. And last but not least, our small but mighty team at Equality Australia, particularly Danielle Young and our incredible strategic advisor, Amanya Brown, who also happens to be, in her spare time, the Co-Secretary-General of ILGA World. Don't worry, you'll be hearing from Amanya later on today, and she always brings the house down. Now, this state and this city have a special place in the history of our global movement. It's where, in 1970, the first gay rights organisation in Australia, the Campaign Against Moral Persecution, or CAMP, was founded. It's where the trailblazing 78ers, those who marched in 1978, bravely stepped out of the bars and onto the streets in protest for the first gay and lesbian Mardi Gras. I'm so sorry Robin couldn't be here this morning. It is also where laws have been slowly changed to decriminalise our love, recognise our families and protect us from discrimination and harm. That work is not done yet, but we have made immense progress. But it's also where the oldest continuous culture known to humanity was colonised and dispossessed of its people's land and culture. A stain that continues on our national conscience today and which our nation continues to struggle to address. It's also where people have come from around the world to escape persecution, but who have not always found the safety they deserve or an easy journey once they arrive. It is where religious institutions still fire people or treat them unfairly because of who they are or because they support and affirm us. It is where trans and gender diverse people still struggle to access ID documents, such as birth certificates, that affirm who they are and without the need for surgery. That is surgery and other health care that they can struggle to gain access to. And it is where intersex children and young people are still subjected to unnecessary and sex normalisation procedures without their consent. This conference is an opportunity for Australia to restock, get its house in order, and learn from you on how we can do better. It's also an opportunity to share examples with the world of some positive practice, some world-leading legislation, such as the Victorian so-called conversion therapy legislation or the change and suppression legislation that was passed recently. But it is also much more than this. It is about you and our place in our global movement. A movement that sits alongside the aspirations of people of many cultures, traditions and economic means for basic decency and respect, and in some cases, survival. It is an opportunity to learn and know how we can do better to support each other, stand together and share and learn the skills for success and ensure that no one is left behind. A bit about our vision for the conference. We consulted with our global movement about this vision. You told us the themes you wanted, and we listened. We want this conference to give you the opportunity to meet each other, learn from one another, and grow as a movement. When you leave this place and go back to your homes, be it across the bridge, across the country, or across the seas, we want you to feel part of an unstoppable movement for change. There are enormous challenges ahead of us, and as there have been for many years. The shoots of progress can be fragile, yet they are determined. They are resilient. And from decriminalisation to addressing discrimination through to the recognition of who we are, who we love and our needs, it is sometimes 1 or 2 steps forward and a few steps back. But we must never forget what this movement is about and what it has achieved in a relatively short time in the long arc of human history. Our gains are fragile and they are not enjoyed equally by all of us, but they have been significant nonetheless. When I think about our strength and resilience, I think about my friend Peter de Waal. Peter was born in 1938 and he couldn't be here today, but I did speak to him this morning and he sends his best wishes to everyone. When I told you that it was here in Australia that the first gay rights organisation was born, it was Peter who helped found it. The first gay and lesbian counselling service was established and run out of Peter's living room and happily still continues today, and I think it's now a nationwide program. And when I told you about the brave 78ers who marched in the first Mardi Gras, Peter was among them. Peter worked alongside us in the marriage equality campaign in 2017, desperate for the chance to marry his lifelong partner of 50 years, Peter Bonsall-Boone. Now, 7 months shy of those laws being passed by our Parliament, Bon passed away. He had been Peter's partner and co-conspirator every step of the way. But 10 days before Bon died, his historical convictions for crimes that should have never been crimes were finally cleared from his record. Peter tells me that that was in fact the last time that Bon ever smiled. Being part of that change with Bon is a memory that I will hold dear forever. But that change was possible because for decades, activists and advocates like you have fought for the laws that protect us all equally, that fought for societies that embrace and welcome us for who we are. So in closing, our movement is defined by the incredible courage, vision and determination of millions of Peters and Bons, of Robins, of Sunils and Rosannas, of Gassans and hikers, many of whom are here today. Peter today still advocates for others, including forcibly displaced LGBTIQ+ people and our trans communities who are under increasing attack globally. Today, and for the next 3 days, we set about creating new connections together, exploring how far we've come and how far we should dream we can go together. We owe that to ourselves and to each other, because we are all deserving of a life that is free and equal in dignity and respect. Thank you.